Hey everybody, Realm Builder Guy here, and welcome back to the channel. Well, a little bit ago, I did a review about Castles and Crusades and why I consider it the best modern edition of Dungeons and Dragons. If you haven't checked that one out, you can go check it out after this video. Today, I want to talk to you about this right here, and well, on the face of it, it looks like it's just the same Castles and Crusades, but if you look at this little badge up here, shows up right there. This tells you this is a new version of Castles and Crusades, and that's what I'm going to be reviewing today. Castles and Crusades Reforged Edition, and how it's making a great game even better. So I had spoken previously about the great virtues of Castles and Crusades and why it is my personal choice for a D20 D&D game. Better than 3rd edition, 4th edition, or 5th, or whatever we're calling it now edition. Castles and Crusades truly captures Dungeons and Dragons as it was conceived by Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, etc. in the 70s and 80s. And 90s as well, if you throw in some 2nd edition stuff. But what happened, of course, a lot of us remember Wizards of the Coast, the current owners of the license of the trademark of D&D. You know, they kind of tried to revoke the OGL a while ago, and a lot of publishers reacted to that and decided to, well, scrub any OGL-esque material from their books and games, so they no longer had to print that stupid license and were no longer at the behest of Wizards of the Coast. And that is exactly what the amazing people at Trollord Games did with Castles and Crusades. And the way you can identify that again is by seeing that little badge you see here in that player's handbook just off to the side of it. That indicates it is Reforged. And what that means is that they've changed spell names, some monster names, and a few other little things to wipe off that OGL stench, as it were, from their amazing game. And now it is completely just Trollord Games, Castles and Crusades. But they didn't just do that. With the 3 new books, they've done a few other, some minor and some I would say major tweaks to their game. Now, I have to say that the 3 books were provided to me by Trollord Games, but I'm not being paid for this, and, you know, I do have some minor criticisms I want to go over at the end, or really, it's only one. But a lot of praise, but that doesn't affect my review of these products. But as you already know, I'm a huge Castles and Crusades fan if you watched the previous review video, which again, I highly recommend you check out. So what has changed? Now, aside from changing a lot of the spell names and monster names, what the great people at Trollord Games did with Castles and Crusades Reforged is they went back, reviewed a lot of things, some errata, some stuff that, you know, little maybe errors in text or anything like that were cleaned up, and the layout was improved. While I don't have the PDF of the Monster and Treasure book or the Castle Keeper's Guide, I do have from the Player's Handbook, and the layout is the same in all 3 books. The general, let's call it, design philosophy behind the layout. So you'll kind of see that here in a second. And we're going to start here right away on the Barbarian Class page. And what I really like with the layout, the uniform layout, the headers here are much bigger than they were in the previous print run where I have all the books from. So it makes it easier to navigate, easier to see. The other thing is they have updated a lot of the artwork, like this awesome looking barbarian here. So kudos to that. So it is a cleaner, better looking book overall. Also full bleed or full page bleed art in all the books. Before there was always a little bit of a bleed edge left over, and now it's full page art, and that just makes the great art in these books stand out even more. Another thing that I like is they didn't go with a total update in the sense of They still refer to the different races within the game as races, not change the word a little bit, but really mean the same thing. And it's still the core of the game. And that's the essence really that you need to understand. This is not a new edition of Castles and Crusades, rather just got rid of the OGL stuff. And that's why at the end of my review, I'm going to talk to you about whether or not you should buy these books, in my opinion. But I will say it is 100% the same game, in the sense of if you have the older editions or printings, not editions, it's the same edition for 20 years. But the older printings, you can still sit at the same table with someone with Reforged books, and you're going to be speaking the same language. The only thing is, of course, the spell names have changed. But if you have any experience with D&D, you kind of really know what the spells are. Plus, the amount of spells and so on that hasn't changed. So you look at the spell lists and you already know what you're dealing with. Same with monster lists. You already know what you're looking at in that moment. Now, one of the big changes in the player's handbook, which, you only really need 2 books to run Castles and Crusades, the player's handbook and Monsters and Treasure book. I'd still recommend the Castle Keeper Guide, best GM book out there. But if you're going to play it, the big change made in the player's handbook is alignment. So it's no longer called alignment. Now it is called disposition. And I really like the way they have played with this aspect of the game. And I find it really interesting. I can't think off the top of my head of anybody else who's done it. If somebody has, let me know in the comments below if I am wrong. But to my knowledge, they are the only ones who do it, at least in my vast library of alignment-based role-playing games. And what I mean with the way they've played with it, if you look here, they have that axis of good, evil, chaos, law, and neutrality. That's new graphics there. But if you look at this page, it's not just that you're neutral good, chaotic good, granted true neutral is true neutral, lawful evil, or whatever. No, you can play with it. Are you neutral/good, or are you good/neutral? It's nuance change, but it's still change. So in my current Castles and Crusades campaign that we just started in my own homebrew setting, that I do plan on detailing here on the channel in future, one of the wizards said, I kind of want to be chaotic neutral, and I really hate chaotic neutral, but we kind of went through the nuanced difference between chaotic neutral or neutral chaotic. So to me, a chaotic neutral character, he would be the kind that would take the wand, kind of see what happens. Who cares what the consequences are? It doesn't mean if it's good or evil. They're just kind of truly chaotic, a little crazy, ultimately selfish and reckless, but not necessarily callously evil. They don't care if it's good. Someone who is neutral chaotic still leans into that chaos factor and doesn't really care for society or those norms or being constricted in a way, but it's more about being neutral. So they're not just going to do the crazy thing because, hey, let's see what happens. They're going to be a little bit more subdued about that, but they are not concerned with good or evil. It's more about taking that chaos factor down a little bit and instead doing what benefits them the most. Good or evil, who's to say? That's not a concern, but they're not going to be reckless about it. Whereas chaotic neutral, that's a reckless character. So these are nuanced differences, but they can have a strong impact on how you play a character and how they fit in your world. So I love what they've done to alignment with disposition. So the other major change they have made is how they present spells. I saw an interview with Steve Chenault, the head of Trollord Games, where he spoke about he wanted spells to be shown differently than what we've been used to in Dungeons and Dragons over the decades. Less formulaic, more narrative, more descriptive. And they've definitely achieved that. Now, on the one hand, it is more narrative and more descriptive, but it's still easy to read with the key information being bolded and highlighted so that you can see exactly what it does. If we look at Acidic Bolt as an example, you can quickly see without reading anything else, it sticks out. It's a level 2 wizard spell, 2d4 points of damage, 2 rounds at 3rd to 4th level, 3 rounds 5th to 6th level. So you can see that it scales depending on your level. For the round, so that's how long it takes. Range is 450 feet. Duration of 1 round plus 1 for every 2 levels. No saving throws. Affected by spell resistant. And then casting components listed there, and you can just quickly read through it. So it catches your eye quickly, but it's not as formulaic. But what I really like is this italicized text here at the top. It describes what it looks like when a spell is cast. And that is something I've rarely, if ever, seen in a rulebook. So if we look at Acidic Bolt, it says, by casting a drop of acid in the air, uttering arcane words and articulating certain gestures, the caster unleashes a bolt of acidic energy at a single target. So you have an immediate image of what it looks like that the caster, that the wizard in this case, has to do to make this spell function. And it also lists the spell component. I really, really like that because when you're a player, or even if you're a castle keeper, but really as a player, sometimes you're like, okay, it kind of does this and I make it up. We'll see what happens. This kind of shows you an example of what it could look like. Aid, a level 2 cleric spell right underneath it. By placing a hand upon a single target, the caster imparts aid. So you already know right there in that description what it does in general, and then the bolded text tells you what it does specifically mechanically. I like this combination of narrative description along with quick, easy to read mechanics. The other addition that I am so thankful for that they put into this new Reforge Player's Handbook, we finally have duration of light sources. That is something that I kind of complained about previously, that we had radius of light, but how long does a torch burn in Castles and Crusades? Now I would just take AD&D rules because why not? It's easy, but why not add it? And I remember once bringing that up in the fantastic Troll Lord Games Discord server, which you should definitely join. And Steve Chenault actually answered and said, yeah, that's something we're going to put in the Reforge Player's Handbook because, yeah, that really needs to be in there. So now you know how long your torch or lantern are going to burn when you are playing CNC. So that's a quick look at the layout, some of the additions in the Player's Handbook. I will say the Player's Handbook is about 40 pages longer than the previous printing Player's Handbook. And why? You have... well, it's layout to a degree. You've got larger headings and subheadings, which make it easy to navigate and read. And the spell descriptions, they are longer, so you get more there. So the Player's Handbook, again, to summarize the changes, of course, spell descriptions, spell names, of course, adding the duration of light sources, and the change to alignment, i.e. disposition, that I really, really like, plus new added art. Other than that, it is 90% of what the previous printing had. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about the best GM book since the AD&D DMG written by Gary Gygax, the Castle Keeper's Guide. Now, I don't have a PDF of this, and the design and layout is the same as in the Player's Handbook. It is 99.9% the same content as far as I could see from previous printing. Now, they changed some of the names of some of the hirelings you have, or adherents, as it's called in CNC. The only thing that I saw that they really added are rules for donning and doffing armor, so putting armor on and taking it off, and sleeping in armor. That's one little paragraph. Other than that, I believe the page count is exactly the same. So page for page, it was the same as previous ones. So if you have the previous CKG, you're pretty much on par. The only difference, of course, being spell and monster names that are listed in this one are different than in previous printings, and they will be the same as in the player's handbook. Next up, I want to talk about the Monster and Treasure book. Now, along with the player's handbook, this is the only other really required book if you're going to be the castle keeper and run CNC. This has seen, a huge change in the terms of layout and the way it looks. And they always said they were going to mirror the Monster and Treasures of Aired book that came out not too long ago, which is a beautiful book. They have changed a lot of the art, has been updated. It looks fantastic. So it is definitely an upgrade visually over the previous Monster and Treasure book. Of course, some monster names have been changed to make sure there's no OGL problem there. And the layout and how the monsters are shown. So I don't have a PDF of this. I'm going to pop up a quick image screenshot of it, and you can see how it's laid out. It's concise, it's easy to read. They've added some things like climate and biomes, so you immediately know where you can place these monsters in your setting or another setting. It's easy to understand. It was easy for me to create random encounter tables for my setting by using that, by having biome and the climate easy to see. I'm like, okay, I already know this is going to be in this. We're playing in a specific, say, a northern temperate zone. All right, I can quickly at a glance see where they fit and where they don't. Of course, your world can be whatever your world is, but it's a great guideline. Now, I mentioned I have one critique, and it's a slight minor critique. They added sanity for monsters. I love that. I love the fact that in a D&D-esque game, now players or characters, when they encounter a creature for the first time that's totally mind-bending, that they've never encountered before, that they are going to have to make a sanity check to see how they react. However, I didn't see it anywhere in any of the books. I searched a few times. It references that the sanity rules are listed in Amazing Adventures. That is their basically I mean, it's D&D-esque, but it's more modern and futuristic settings. And you can play horror and sci-fi and stuff like that. I don't have it. I haven't read it. I don't really know what's in there. I know they have a new edition as well. Again, keeping the OGL demons out of it. But I believe the sanity rules, maybe in an abridged version, should have been put in the Monster and Treasure book or the Castle Keeper's Guide or the Player's Handbook. Ideally, honestly, in the Player's Handbook, or since you only mention it in Monsters and Treasures, you put it in there. I think probably both would be best. To refer to Amazing Adventures, I don't think that's fantastic to say, oh, if you want to use these rules, refer somewhere else. If I am wrong, if there is an online free errata or something from Trollord Games addressing this, let me know down below. I couldn't find it by the time I'm recording this. I couldn't find it in the books. If I overlooked it, please let me know. And then this critique, the only minor critique I have, is gone right away. So, should you buy the new Reforged CNC books? Okay, we're going to go at this from two angles. First of all, if you are new to Castles and Crusades, the answer is simple, yes. I don't think you should invest in the old printings. Personally, why? I mean, you can find them. Sometimes you can find them cheap now. But go with the new stuff. The layout is better. The art is better. You have some additional rule tweaks that I think are better. I think the way the spell descriptions are handled are better. If you're going to be a CK, definitely the new Monster and Treasure book is a huge upgrade over the old Monster and Treasure book when it comes to art and layout and how easy it is to understand the monsters and utilize them. And it's a quick, easy to read through every single monster in there. So yeah, if you are new to CNC, definitely 100% buy these. Now, if you are an existing Castles and Crusades player like me, like probably a lot of you that are watching this, would I recommend buying all 3 books? It's a personal choice. For me, prior, when I saw this was going to come out, I was first like, I don't know. Then, I signed up for the newsletter and you got the PDF of the Reforge Player's Handbook. And I saw the copy and went, wow, this looks fantastic. I love what they did with alignment. Definitely going to buy the PHB. And then obviously I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm probably going to buy the Castle Keeper Guide just to make sure the terminology is the same. And then since I already had the Monster and Treasure books of Aired, and I loved how it was designed, and when I saw Stephen Chenault saying, yes, we're going to mirror that design, I said, okay, I'm going to buy all 3 because it's just fantastic. So I would say definitely the Monster and Treasure book because it is just that big of an upgrade. Player's Handbook, because of the way I like alignment being handled in it, I would say, yeah, it's worth the investment. Castle Keeper Guide, it's like 99.9% the same. So that's the one I would put out there and say, it's up to you. Maybe that is a future purchase. I would still love to buy it. Here's the other reason. If you're like, hey, I've got the budget, I've got the money, I could buy all 3, then do it. Support Troll Lord Games. They are a fantastic publisher doing the right thing and doing it the right way. They are keeping the spirit of Gary Gygax and AD&D alive almost better than anybody else who is publishing games these days, especially if you look at it as a unified D20. So basically a post AD&D era type game. Nobody does it better. Nobody's a better steward of the spirit of the game than Troll Lord Games for that. There are obviously a lot of other publishers on the indie and OSR space who do it as well. But as far as modern D20 D&D, nobody does it than Troll Lord Games. Great group of people. I was lucky enough to meet them at Gamehole Con. I mean, down to the earth, super nice people, and they earn my money. They also print in the USA. They do a lot of printing in-house. They also do some printing, I believe, in Missouri. So yeah, they do everything the right way and support local business in the United States, which I think is fantastic. If you're outside of the US, okay, fine. That may not matter to you, but they're not printing in China, which a lot of the big publishers do. In fact, I believe most of them do. So support Troll Lord Games and Castles and Crusades. I mean, it's not hyperbole. You knew I was a CNC fanboy going into this, and yes, this makes a great game better. Reforged, well done, Troll Lord Games, Castles and Crusades, still, and I can't see it changing. Best modern edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and I absolutely endorse 10 out of 10 the new Reforged books for CNC. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and if you want to support the channel, check down below. I am investing more time and effort into my Patreon moving forward, and there are different tiers there that you can support my work and the channel down there as well, or you can just buy me a coffee. So until next time, I'm Realm Builder Guy, and I will talk to you soon.